So I'd like to welcome everybody to the Selectboard meeting for Thursday, June 21st. First day of summer, and this is a huge turnout, so we're happy to see you. Thanks for coming. A couple of notes at the beginning. Tom is not here tonight, and Phil is here via telephone. He's out of town, so there'll be 4 of us in attendance. First item on the agenda, as we call it to order, is additions, deletions, changes to the agenda, and public comment. So I'll take any of that. And I do have something in this if it isn't brought up. Yes?
I'm here on behalf of the Energy Committee, and I submitted today a resolution that was passed in our committee that we'd like the Select Board to consider. I'm Chuck Reese, by the way, Energy Committee. And it is a resolution that kind of addresses how we're going to reach our goals of renewable energy, 90% renewable energy by 2050, which is in our town plan. It also addresses the issue of further infrastructure for fossil fuel, whether it be liquid or gas. And we would like to get on your agenda in the future meeting, and Renee and I have talked about that. And love to have some discussion about this resolution. I made some copies, but it looks like Renee beat me to the punch here and made copies for you. I know we're not discussing it tonight, but we would like to be on your agenda.
So I see no problem with that. Certainly, we would encourage it. Is it in our Dropbox, Renee?
It's in your Dropbox.
Okay, so good.
I do have some hard copies of you too.
I'm okay if everything that you have there is here, so,
That's right.
but otherwise I know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see we can fit him in, if not next.
He's gonna
but-
let me know which July meeting,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, July 5th or 19th, I think.
right,
Yep.
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I look forward to discussing that with you guys. And
I saw in meeting minutes that this was coming, so I was wondering when it was, so I'm
Yep.
happy to see it.
Yep.
So.
I'd also like to put a plug in for Laura Capps, who's joining our committee, who's been working with it and has been a wonderful addition, so.
Yep, we have that conversation on the agenda
on the
to
agenda
formally
tonight too, yeah.
talk to her about that.
Yep, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Yes.
Hi, Tom Murray with Vermont Gas.
Hi, Tom.
If I could I wanted to update the Select Board real quickly on our line test that we're doing in early July.
Yes.
Vermont Gas is required to do a line test, which involves us running devices through our line, our transmission line, from our new line from Colchester to Middlebury. There really won't be any impact on the community, but we want to let you know that during that process, which is going to start around July 9th, we're going to have our vendor out there we're basically tracking these devices that we send through. So just to give you a quick example, we'll put a device in Colchester in the line, and it'll take, roughly say 40 hours to get to Middlebury. And this was, if you recall, we did some of these in March using a flare that allowed it to move faster. Well, we're using a new technology that won't flare, basically, and obviously they go very slow. So long story short, we're going to have I'll use Shelburne Falls Road. So our vendor may be parked on the side of Shelburne Falls Road for an hour to track the device, make sure it goes by. So they have these devices that when the device goes through the pipe, they say, okay, it passed here. I'm going to go down to Baldwin Road and check to see if it passes there. So they're just tracking it. But the reason I bring it up is because these take so long, some of these guys could be there at late hours and things like that. So we're talking to first responders, just want to let you guys know that that's what's going to be going on. So again, relatively on it, they'll have, utility work ahead signs ahead of them, and there'll be all the safety precautions taken. We've notified the first responder, going to notify 911 dispatch if they get these calls. We're going to have a website. We've got an FAQ, which is a frequently asked question that I think Renee can put on the town website if people have asked questions. And we've obviously got our 7x24 control center that's always available to take calls if people have questions. So we just want to make sure that people, we live in rural areas, so anytime something happens, between 8 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning, people tend to take notice of that. We want to make sure people are aware of what's going on. So it's going to take us several weeks because of the slowness. We got to run about 5 runs. So if you think of 40 hours, and we're not going to run them over the weekend, so it's going to take us, 3 to 4 weeks to get it all done, but it won't require the flare, which disturbs some people down in Middlebury, and we'll get the data we needed to do our tests. So that's the long and short of it.
Could you say at the beginning of the dates?
It's going to start on July 9th, which I think is a Monday, so I think technically it may be Tuesday when they run the first device down, essentially. And these devices are, the first couple devices are actually cleaning devices, and then the last two devices are these basically test equipment that we've got, literally cameras and magnets, and it's a interesting technology device, basically. So you'll hear the term PIG, which is Pipeline Inspection Gauge, basically. It's kind of a generic term for these things.
And is this, you said a couple, 3 weeks, maybe a month?
Yeah, so it'll start on the 9th, and it could run for as long as a month. We're working with, Middlebury College and Agrimart. The more that they're using gas down there during that period, the faster it might go. So it could be shorter if we have good usage down there, but worst case scenario is a month. But we're going to update our website every day, so you'll kind of know. We'll have a website for this, so you can go to the website and say, oh, they're working in, there's going to be somebody parked in Hinesburg at such and such, and each time they arrive at a site, they're going to be reporting into our control center. So if somebody calls up and says, hey, I see a car parked on Shelburne Falls Road, our control center will say, yeah, that's Bob, he's there, he'll be there for about an hour more, and then he's leaving. They'll only need to be there for about, 45 minutes, an hour, and then they leapfrog to the next spot. So.
And the nature of the inspection is required by statute or something?
Yeah,
or
it is. I mean, typically every 6 or 7 years by federal code, you're supposed to run these types of tests. So we technically don't have to do one by federal code. Initially, with the initial, we could wait 6, 7 years, but we want to get a baseline to start with, and then that'll be something to measure the pipeline's condition in the future by.
Perfect. Yeah, stay in communication with the town
Yeah, I'll send you
administrator's
stuff.
office.
So you have an FAQ?
Yeah, we'll send it to you. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
What are you inspecting for?
It's at this point, it's really just a snapshot of the pipeline, so it takes, it's amazing the detail that these devices can get, basically, if there's any blemishes in the pipe and things like that. And so it's all, when it was put in, it was all inspected kind of as it was installed. Each weld was x-rayed, all that kind of stuff. So it's just it's gonna give us a baseline of the entire pipeline to say, hey, it's in great shape. If we see any anomalies, we can go, we can actually check them out and things like that. So.
Didn't you already run some tests, though?
We have not run a full line test. So we've run some tests for different sections of it. We have not run the full line test, and we want to have that full, really end-to-end picture of what's going on. So we're not worried about anything. It's just. I think it's a good. It's not required at this stage, but from a federal code, but we think it's a good practice to just get it done. Basically.
Anything for yourself? Phil, can you hear the conversation okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's coming in great. Nice video and audio, so nice job.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I
You're
have.
good?
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Yes.
Yeah, Bill Marks. Tom, is anything visible of what you're doing in this whole process other than just the pickup truck? Is a pickup being parked alongside of a road?
That should be it. There's not this. You guys are just you're in the tracking path. Basically, we put them in Colchester, we take them out in Middlebury, but there's no. It's just literally they put a sensor kind of above the pipe, and they'll know when the device goes under.
So the only reason you're here to notify the board is just so they know why this Vermont gas pickup truck is on the side of the road.
Basically, yeah, because it's. I mean, I know in my neighborhood, if somebody parked in the middle of the night there, I'd be like, "What's going on?" And we just don't want to generate phone calls or concern, basically.
Anybody else? Yes.
This is not part of the court order required to check parts of the line?
That's a different process. And part of our overall CPG, we agreed to do this test in the early phases of it. There's another process that's looking at the entire project.
While you're doing this, will you check also to see if it's the right depth, buried the right depth and all that?
This test, I don't think, looks at depth. There's other data points around the depth, but this test is not. It doesn't have. It's looking at the pipe proper, it doesn't have a technology to tell you that there's, 4 feet of dirt above your roof or something.
How long has this process been going on, or is this,
It'll start on the 9th, and it
no,
will...
no, elsewhere on the pipeline? Have you inspected any other parts of the pipeline?
Yeah, we do periodic inspections on our kind of legacy pipelines going north, but we haven't, the new pipe, this is the first time we're doing that.
And have you turned up anything in other areas that you're concerned about?
Where this is not a concern, this is just a routine test that we're doing, there's no...
So everything's good with all the tests you've done?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the test data in terms of our north, nothing that I know of, I'm not aware of anything that are any concerns, basically.
And if there is, I would imagine your website and others are a resource for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're, the legacy test on the upsystem, that's not something this is about our compliance with the ANGP project and making sure people are aware if there's gonna be some vehicles out there. That's really, I just want to let people know that that's going out there.
Any other comments? Yes.
I'm confused because my understanding was that you ran tests in September 2017, that you're required to test the functioning of the AC mitigation and the cathodic
It's nothing to do with
protection.
that.
This has nothing to do with that?
No.
So you're not testing AC mitigation or
No,
cathodic
this,
protection?
I don't know
This is
where.
a metal loss
This is,
test?
what's that?
A metal loss test? I'm
No,
just wondering which tests
This
you're-
is our internal line inspection test, called internal. So it's a device that goes through there that basically is gonna give us data on the condition of the pipe, basically. And it's, like I said, our baseline data. So it's not related to AC mitigation, it's not related to depth of cover. It's just a separate test.
So what kind of information does the test actually provide?
It gives you, it can tell you the information about the wall thickness of the pipe, for example.
The
Now,
corrosion
and then,
concern.
right, but obviously we've had the pipe is new, the welds were inspected or with x-rayed, so we're pretty comfortable that the data's gonna be good, but we're gonna get a full snapshot of the entire line. So it's good, it's a good, I look at it as a belt and suspenders thing, and we're happy to be getting it done.
Because my understanding was that there was a test of this nature. There's so many different kinds of tests. I'm trying to wrap my head around what they are, but there was a test of this nature that was done on the first segment of the pipeline, the first 11 miles, and it was reported that there was a 20% metal loss in one area or more.
We did, I don't have that data in front of me, but I know we did a test on that section. I forget when it was done, but I know we did a test. I don't have the data
So
from that.
that was within 6 months of the pipe being in operation. So 20% metal loss within 6 months of operation is a lot and very concerning. And my understanding is that VGS was required to then go do a dig there in that spot and reported back that there was actually no problem. There was maybe a minute little scratch at that point, which raises the question, how accurate are these tests if you get readings that are so far off from when you do a visual inspection?
When we get this full line inspection, we'll get that data, and I think you're involved in the PUC proceedings, so you can take a look at the data.
So I wanted to step in here
Oh,
for
okay.
just a moment and make sure that Val had everybody's
I'm sorry.
name that was speaking, and do you have everybody's
I
name?
don't have that ordinance,
And-
I was gonna ask for.
Yeah, and to make sure that everybody does sign in.
Okay.
Make sure that everybody does sign in. So I will say, is there anything else as it relates to this internal line inspection, knowing that we're on a schedule for a public hearing as well tonight? So yes, in the back.
I had a question. I'm still concerned about what this pig is actually looking for. So, wall thickness, what else does it tell us? Can you give me a list of things?
I'm not an
These are the things
expert.
we're
If you
looking
want to
for?
give me your name, I can send you an email and let you know what some of those things are. I'll give you
Yeah.
my card.
Can I have your name for minutes, please?
Theora, Theora, Ward.
Thank you.
And yes, right here, right behind Tom.
I just have a quick question. I think the
Yeah, your name.
VGS recently filed something with the PUC that said
Just make
that
sure you identify, please.
there was a portion of the pipeline that would not be tested, or at least data wouldn't be available from this test. Are any of those portions within the town of Hinesburg?
I'm not aware of it. My understanding is that this test from the new pipeline project, basically Colchester to Middlebury, this test is going to give us that data.
For
So-
every spot?
The test it's not discriminatory in every way. As it runs down the line, it's capturing data.
So I'd ask to identify who's speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry, Melanie Pizer.
Thank you. Yeah. And then the last
Yeah.
in the red.
Julie Masuga, last
you.
name is Macuga. I'm just wondering if the data from this inspection will be available to the public in any way.
I don't know what the plans for the data are at the end of the day, so I'm familiar with it.
All right. Any other topics that we want to bring in terms of agenda item changes, deletions from anybody on the board? Phil, are you good?
The only other letter,
Yeah.
the only other letter was from Jan Blomstrom regarding the NRG.
Yes,
application.
so I'll acknowledge what Renee's talking about, and that's an application for water, wastewater allocations that was sent to us. That's in our packet, which my thought is, if it's agreeable with the board, to talk about that under item number 7, I believe it is, which is discussion of water, wastewater allocations, which that item is about next year's allocations, but it's appropriate to talk about that application and another one that we have from Frost to start that conversation because it impacts next year's numbers. If that works for everybody?
Right, because in theory, they are applying under this year's.
This year's,
Got it.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
You good with that, Phil?
Yes, I am.
Thanks. Anything else?
I want to remind, please, everyone, if they can sign the sign-in sheet. Thank you.
So with that, let's formally open the public hearing for the proposed zoning and subdivision regulation revisions. This is revisions that have been brought to us by the Planning Commission to clean up and clarify the work that is done by the Planning and Zoning on a ongoing basis already, but to put into code everything that we're practicing with some changes that are maybe more substantial. And with the opening of this hearing, which is for the public's benefit, of which the Planning Commission has had at least one, if not more, conversations in this ongoing process, I'd like to invite Alex up to give any kind of background that might be appropriate for this discussion as we look to, at the end of the conversation, close the public hearing and entertain a motion to adopt these changes. Thanks, Alex.
Sure. So just to flesh out the background, a couple of years back, the Planning Commission started work on this accumulated list of suggested changes. Some of them come from the Development Review Board in their application of the regulations. Most of them actually came from Peter Erb, our previous zoning administrator,
All right, yeah.
just through his observations of difficult sections of the regs. And the Planning Commission had a lot of work sessions and formalized a proposal. They held a public hearing in December of last year and had pretty good turnout at the public hearing. There was substantial comment and suggestions for further changes to what they had proposed, so they spent a good deal of time talking through those and revised the proposal before sending it to your board. And per our iterative planning and zoning adoption process in Vermont, your board is required to hold at least one public hearing, and that's what this is tonight. So this is an opportunity for the public to basically make any final comments before you take action. So if there's something egregious in there that they want an explanation of or want changed or what have you, this may be the last opportunity. So the changes are summarized on a document called Housekeeping Regulation Revision Summary dated May 7th, 2018. There are copies on the table, and it's all up on the website as well. So rather than going through all of the changes, because I know we've already done that with your board, basically I just wanted to forward you a memo that I meant to get to Renee earlier for your packets. The Planning Commission just finalized this memo at their meeting last week. By statute, if the Select Board changes the Planning Commission's proposal in any way, the Planning Commission is supposed to submit a report indicating whether those Select Board initiated changes are still consistent with statute and the town plan. and it's a shall in statute, not a may. So anyways, I drafted a memo for the Planning Commission to review. They did at their last meeting last week. And I'll just read it for the record, and I've got paper copies to distribute to the three of you that are here. If you want to pass that around, Andrea. And I emailed Renee a copy right before this meeting so that a digital version would be about. Phil, if you're on the other end there, I copied you on that email. So look in your email inbox and you'll see this memo there. And in any case, it's dated June 13th. It says a report dated November 15th, 2017 detailed the Planning Commission's zoning and subdivision regulation revision proposal ahead of their December 13th, 2017 public hearing. This report described the proposed changes and discussed how the changes further the goals of the town plan. Per state statute, when the Select Board makes any substantive changes to the Planning Commission proposal, the Planning Commission shall amend this report, submit it to the Select Board at or prior to their public hearing. This memo seeks to address this statutory requirement. The Select Board is holding a public hearing tonight on all of the regulation revisions proposed by the Planning Commission, save one. The Select Board decided not to further prohibit drive-throughs as proposed by the Planning Commission. Our current regulations prohibit drive-through restaurants but allow for other sorts of drive-throughs, for example, banks, pharmacies, etc. The Planning Commission proposal would have prohibited any new drive-through. The Planning Commission discussed this at the June 13th meeting, and there was general consensus that the Select Board's revision to the proposal represents a simple difference of policy opinion on a technical matter. The Select Board's decision preserves the existing zoning allowances with regard to drive-throughs. While a majority of the Planning Commission still believe expanding the prohibition on drive-throughs would be positive, this change to the Planning Commission's proposal doesn't substantively impact the town's ability to achieve the goals and policies in the town plan, and the Planning Commission appreciates the Select Board's concurrence with the rest of the changes proposed. I apologize for not getting you that earlier. I meant to on Thursday or Friday of last week, but statutory requirement met.
It's done. Check.
That's all I wanted to say, because really this is a venue for the public.
And
Here's our public.
yes, and as I
You have a tall order.
and as I look around the room, I'll look to the one public so far and ask if there is any comments that want to be made.
I reviewed it in order to comment. So I
Okay,
have no
that's fine.
comments.
Fair enough. You're just standing there, so I wanted to ask, or sitting there, and so I wanted to ask. Is there anything that the Select Board members have to say that hasn't already been said or wants to be said again, as we talked about this at the last? I open up to the three of you.
Or the two of you.
Well, Phil.
Oh, Phil, that's true. Sorry.
Yeah, if you can
Go
hear
ahead,
me.
Phil. Yep, we can hear
First
you.
of all, I know it was said, I don't know that I say it specifically, much thanks to the Planning Commission and Alex for leading this effort. It's a big effort. And I appreciate Alex dotting the I's and crossing the T's on his latest memo, which I did access via email. So it looks like everything's in place. That's what we, if we, end up approving this. So thanks to the Planning Commission.
Did everybody hear that okay? Yeah. Especially you, Alex, since he was thanking you.
I got it.
Yeah. Andrea.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to clarify the drive-through thing, not in terms of, so my understanding is that we're not changing it, but it is a conditional use, the drive-through?
Yes, for, it depends on the use and the size of the use. Where we are silent on drive-throughs, which we are for most uses, with the exception of banks, if it's a very small establishment with a drive-through, it may not be a conditional use review. It may be just a permitted use. It would go through site plan review. Because our regulations don't specifically talk about drive-throughs except for the prohibition on them for restaurants and making them a conditional use for banks in a particular zoning district. But if a pharmacy, for example, wanted to have a drive-through, our regulations consider that a retail use, and we don't talk about drive-throughs at all. So,
So we could have drive-throughs for more pharmacies.
right, or some other
something.
retail use.
Grocery stores.
But the way our zoning is set up, generally speaking, at least in the village and the Village Northwest districts where retail uses are allowed, anything over 1,000 square feet is a conditional use anyway.
Okay.
So if it would have to be a drive-through on a very small retail use in that district, or be in the commercial district where we don't have, where most commercial uses are permitted uses and are not conditional.
So in a commercial district, a drive-through grocery store would be allowed?
Yes. And it would go through a site plan review, which is the same review that the Hannaford project, which is a grocery store, is going through now, but not a conditional use review.
All right, okay.
Complicated, but yeah, that's how it works.
Procedural,
Yeah.
very procedural.
Yeah, well, I guess I remain concerned that I had hoped that we would follow the Planning Commission's recommendation to prohibit drive-throughs on everything. And am concerned that that we are setting ourselves up to have higher traffic with potential for, of drive-throughs, and that I think that it's not a positive thing for the village to be encouraging more auto-centric travel and retail ways of doing business. And I think that there are numerous ways in which the public can be accommodated, because that was the primary concern that we heard from the public previously, that it was difficult for mothers and children to, get their retail needs met. And that's why drive-throughs were important. And I think we've existed for a very long time having those situations. And, I'm going to vote in favor of these, but I just think that it's a big mistake.
And I want to say that when we had the discussion with the select board, I agree with Andrea. And the thing that some select board members said was if people were handicapped or disabled, that a drive-through was very convenient, and that's true, but I still am sorry that we did not follow the Planning Commission's recommendation. I think that would lead to better quality of life in our town.
And from Alex's reading of this memo, it sounds like this is still a conversation that could still bubble up at times, perhaps, and through some other process of additional revisions, because of course we're going to do this again, I'm sure, at some point, right? These are living documents, that this conversation can continue. And maybe now that we know kind of where our sticking points are, to continue in such a way as to perhaps encourage the kind of ideas around promoting business to people in cars or not, that would perhaps help further this conversation along. I appreciate, like Phil said, all of the effort of those before us to get us to this point. And like Andrea said, even though there is that one minor, maybe not minor, my word, one difference of opinion on this particular topic, that moving forward, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess is the phrase that comes to mind. So let's find a way to continue this conversation around this particular one. And it sounds like, too, that we could, we have an energy committee that might be helpful to us here in some way on this conversation, and an economic development committee that might be helpful. Perhaps that somebody wants to take a stab at this and champion this, because certainly there are strong feelings about this, but not strong enough to stop the work of the hours and hours of work that has been put into this so far. So I really do appreciate that, because it made me think about it in another way as well. So often the default is, well, we always do it that way. And what I'm hearing is, well, we don't have to. And there are other options. Let's explore what those options are in the future as we move forward with this one. Any other comments? Phil, anything?
No, I think I'm ready.
Okay. just for the sake of asking, emails, phone calls, public comments?
I haven't received any. It's been very quiet since
This part of the process.
since you finalized
Yeah.
your proposal and we notified everyone about it.
I would then say that we will close the public hearing for the proposed zoning and subdivision regulation revisions and move to the next agenda item, which be to entertain a motion to adopt said proposed zoning and subdivision regulations.
I'm happy to make a motion.
So motion by Phil.
I'll second it. The motion being to adopt the proposed zoning
I
and
move to adopt the zoning regulations and subdivision regulation revisions as outlined in the public hearing document.
Yep. Does that work?
I second.
Yep, and that works for the statutory, yep. Any discussion on that? You ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. And Tom, had he communicated to us one way or the other?
Yes, he was in favor.
So Tom is in favor, so via.
But I would say, I don't think we could count his vote.
Right, no.
Okay, so
That's
maybe
true,
let
he's not absent,
maybe let the
yeah.
minutes know, but it's a 4-0 vote with Tom
Right,
not here.
because he's not here, yeah.
Thank you. Item number 5, consider approving submission of Village South Sidewalk grant application. And look, hey, Alex is here.
So
Strange.
at a previous meeting, I got your concurrence that it would be all right to prepare an application to the State Agency of Transportation for additional funds for the Village South Sidewalk project, which we received a grant for in 2016, but for which the original cost estimate was way lower than the actual costs are going to be. So I gave you the grant application, or Renee did, I assume, in your packets. It's based on construction cost estimates that are more recent, based on the engineer that we have doing the design work now. It's also based on increased design costs because we had to do an additional wetland delineation and so on and so forth. I did speak with John Kaplan, who's the program manager. This application's due tomorrow. And I said, John, I'm a little concerned because the construction cost estimate that we received that we're basing most of this request on didn't include any contingency. And just as the costs grew from the initial estimate to the current one, the cost could grow some more between now and construction next year or the year after that. And a contingency is a normal thing to add to an estimate to account for those sorts of things. He said that because our construction estimate that we're using for part of the documentation includes a 0% contingency, it would be okay to add a contingency in the application and explain it. So
It's a reasonable thing.
yeah, so he suggested, a 10 or a 15% contingency. I know that in some of our other projects, we've gone up as much as 20 or 25%. So I'm beyond what you saw in your packet, I'm recommending we actually increase the request to include a 15% contingency, which would be an overall increase of $29,335 to the amount that you saw in the draft application materials. That would boost the total request for this grant to $143,255. So if you're amenable to that, I think it's a good idea.
That's the number of 113,920 you're talking about
Correct.
going up to.
Yeah, sorry. In
Yep.
your packet,
Yep.
the amount we were looking for was 113,920 based on all those estimates, but that's without a contingency. So with the contingency of 15%, it would be 143,255.
Yes.
I have no problem with adding the contingency. What I will caution is that we have not gone to, there may be more additions as we move closer to construction with right-of-way acquisition
Sure.
and all of that.
Yeah, that's a
And
black
so-
box when you get to
Yeah,
right away.
Yeah, so it feels, this process just feels like it's really long and it, it's too bad that, all of those known things that we're going to have to face are not addressed early on in this application process, because it takes your time. And this is a project that was conditioned on the applicant doing this project, but it's the town now that is taking the time to oversee the engineer. There's a lot of staff time involved in doing this project that was a condition for a private developer. And I just think it's important to flag that all of this now falls on us to make it happen, and the developer writes a check, which is not unsubstantial.
No, it's going to be quite
It's going
substantial,
to be quite
actually.
substantial, but I just think that it's, we really should be, I think, asking the developer to cover some of the staff time to address this. And in the future, not
Yeah,
now,
and-
but
and-
as we do these projects that it comes about, it is a benefit to the town. That's why we make it a conditional use, a condition of the permit, that this sidewalk has to go in. But just, it's important to flag.
I think that it is a benefit to the town beyond the project itself. And so having a public-private partnership where the town has a little skin in the game makes some sense. But I think in this case, to be fair, we have to recognize that the grant amount that we requested originally was based on a feasibility study that we did that had nothing to do with this development project. We did it before that development project was even, I think, approved. And my frustration with it is less that I have to take some time to write another grant application, and more that the original feasibility study underestimated the cost of the project by nearly 100%. It just makes me
Right, so
wonder
I
if
think
we should have done a better job with the original study.
Well, I don't know about the original
either
study, but when we
collectively,
had an
or-
actual project and this was the responsibility of the developer to put this sidewalk in, we should have asked him for a cost estimate and what the project was going to cost. That is typically what happens when they're having to put in a road or doing this, that those kind of front end stuff needs to be addressed so we know ultimately what the project's going to cost, and we don't deceive ourselves.
In this case, Andrea, we had a town-sponsored feasibility study that we thought was done by a reputable firm that gave us a reasonable estimate, knowing that it would be, of course, off by some amount. But the fact that it was off by such a magnitude, it's just unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about the same thing? Like, are you saying that if that was a better estimate, we wouldn't be talking about the added time and costs associated with staff?
That the developer really could, basically we knew that these grants were available, and we immediately, and I'm not objecting to a private part, but there's certain front-end engineering kinds of stuff that could have been addressed, and those feasibility studies are always conceptual. I don't think we've ever done one where we can rely on the costs being close.
I agree, but it's just a matter of magnitude.
Is it safe to say, though, that's just the nature of the beast here, with those costs just conceptual and not really grounded in anything until you actually get to that process?
I would say to some extent that's true.
Yeah.
I would tell you that the design consultant that we have now that is doing the actual design work doesn't understand how the other consultant that did the feasibility work arrived at their per linear
So
foot
there is some
estimate.
specifics on this one.
And I said, listen, they use the VTrans numbers, which is it's supposed to cost this much per linear foot of sidewalk, and our current consultant just said, well, it needs to be better than that, because then you don't need a consultant, you just apply a formula. But in any case,
They have interns, maybe, that put this one together. I don't know.
Yeah.
Point taken. And so okay, we've identified this. What's the process moving forward for making sure that we don't get stuck?
Well, I think the DRB should require the applicant to provide some updated cost estimates, and it not that's my suggestion, is that we get some real costs early on.
Yeah, from the DRB's perspective, though, they're not concerned with who pays for it. all they're concerned with is that it happens. And if it, as
And
far as
how.
they're concerned, it's the developer's responsibility 100%.
Right.
It was this board's decision to enter into the partnership with that developer to make the project
Right, and I
more
remember
financially, viable.
Right.
So not to throw it back in your face, but in this case, it really should have been
Yes.
me and you as this board telling the developer, if you want us to apply for this grant, we want you to get a much better cost estimate than the one the town already got, because we
Yeah.
don't trust our
Right.
own estimate, something like
Well,
that.
I just remember rolling my eyes when I heard what the estimate was.
I think
knowing.
a
We all
lot. I
did.
think a lot
Yeah.
of people did, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I blame myself, frankly, when that feasibility study was done, for not rolling my eyes then and telling that original consultant, really, what? It should be more, shouldn't it? But anyway,
The answer is yes. Any comments? Phil, anything?
No, it all sounds fine. I think those are all reasonable items to bring up, and I would hope we do get better at this process. And
Yes.
the developer is responsible for sidewalks or whatever it might be. I think it's fine for the town to support that, and this grant is a good example of that. But we really should ensure the town is covered and that the process is and accurate in the best. It has accurate data. So I guess I agree with what people are saying.
Yeah.
And I would just like to appreciate the effort that staff has gone to do this. So
And
it's
that-
not like I don't appreciate it.
And
It's
I would say
just-
too that is just implied in your comments too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice, it's obviously good to say that,
Yeah.
but it's certainly implied in that.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're looking out for here. Are you requiring a motion, or is this just information for us and you're gonna, tomorrow it's due?
right.
Do you need?
It requires a letter from the town administrator saying that the town's in support. Renee has drafted that letter. So I think it would be nice for the minutes to reflect a motion to submit the grant application as described in the materials that you were provided, with this added contingency cost to bump up the total number.
And that cost being a total of $143,255
Right.
is what I heard. I'll entertain the motion.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
And I'll second the motion.
And I'll second.
There you go. You got a third even. Take your pick. Any other discussion on this? And are we ready for the vote? All of those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 There it is. Thank you.
Going to say anything about the letter of support, other than it's noted in the minutes? And
Yeah, that
petition for it?
Renee's got one, it sounds like, ready to go.
It's in Dropbox, yeah.
Yep. Alex, are you sticking around or are you heading out?
Nope, I'll be here for item number 7.
That's what I was thinking myself. Excellent. Moving along to item number 6, I would like to invite Laura Capps up to the conversation and start by thanking you for your application to join the Energy Committee, which you're already a part of, it sounds like, and the tremendous work that you're doing, and the tremendous asset that you bring to, I don't know you personally yet, but we've read the papers that were provided, and again, we've all said this. This is like one of the best things that we get to do, is when somebody wants to come before us and say, can I help? And you look at their resume and you look at their accomplishments and you think, wow, we got lucky. So I appreciate you putting your application in.
Can I thank each of you for your service to our community? We love Hinesburg, so we feel honored to be here, and thank you for everything that you're doing to make it such a wonderful place to have our family.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're grateful.
Since we all live here too, we know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start by just asking, we read a piece of paper of who you are, but what would you like to talk about with regards to who you are and how it fits into what the Energy Committee is doing and what you would like to do? And
I'm Laura Capps. I moved to Hinesburg in January of 2016. It was around 2012 when my husband and I started family planning and decided where we wanted to raise our family. And so it took us a while to land on Vermont, but we did. We were I was afraid of the winter, honestly, but I love it now. And so I was fortunate enough to get work at Efficiency Vermont because of my background. It's actually quite challenging for me to find work because it's quite a boutique skill set that I have. And we're a single income family by design. And so there's only so many places in the country that I can work. So I'm excited to be here. It took us, 6 months to find the right place in Vermont to live. I live next to Ann Dunnigan, who's wonderful. But so my whole entire career, I've worked on sustainability, green building, helping people to have a greener lifestyle, a greener home to live in. And when I was working on my PhD at Georgia Tech, what dawned on me was that I was working on things that would be relevant many years from now, and I really wanted to work on things that are current for today. So even in my current job, the beauty of it is I actually get to work on things that are current today, but also for 20 years out. And so I hope for this community, since this is where we plan to live for the rest of our lives, to be able to have an impact. And since energy is my skill set, it seemed like the best foray into me doing volunteer work in the community. Back in Atlanta, my primary volunteer work was with the Georgia Solar Energy Association originally, and then sometimes you get burned out on solar after a while, and so I transitioned it wasn't intended, and then I transitioned to local farming, and I was part of the farmers market and helping to make all that happen. So I'm excited to work on energy. I think we have a lot of potential. There's a lot of momentum around it, and I think I can really help the individuals within our community in their own homes and spaces. And of course the businesses, I'm happy to help. I have to tell you, I don't know much. I've been attending the meetings, but I haven't felt like I could really play too much of a leadership role since I wasn't a formal committee member, and our committee had a vision already in place. And so I know we're getting ready to work on some planning, and I look forward to doing some strategy with the other members and setting out some more concrete steps of what we're going to do over the next 1 to 5 years. I'm not sure what Chuck's vision is, but try and help.
You'll be part of that.
Yeah,
You'll find that.
As much as he'll let me.
Yeah, you'll find that,
Could be the committee's vision.
your comment about not wanting to step in and push too far. Sometimes it's just, that's how things get done, because somebody steps in and takes it, right? So
Chuck and I have a little history so far, so I'm trying to be respectful of all the years that he's laid before me.
yeah, he's been around a few years.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. Any
Yes.
comments?
Well,
Yes.
I think it's interesting that I was going, sometimes people like to do something different in their spare time than what they do all day.
Yeah.
You obviously must have a passion for it, that you're willing to do it even when you're not at work.
I do, yeah, and I think, I feel like we have resources in Vermont that we didn't. In Georgia, I did some volunteer community work around energy. It was pretty much 1 day a year for MLK Service Day. The community rallied together, and I led energy crews in different homes, and so we could do service day and retrofit people's homes, and other crews in the homes would do, aesthetic cleanup or maintenance or structural repairs. And here, I feel like there's so many resources that our community is not taking advantage of. And so is there a way that by being active within the community on this issue during my spare time, I can help individuals improve on that? And if I get burned out, I'll let folks know and move on to something else. But it also seems like we have other things pretty well covered within the community from where I sit. And so this seems like a place where I could have a good impact.
I'm not familiar with that term, spare time.
Yeah, it was a lot of negotiating for me to,
I'm sure,
with my family to come do this.
Because
but-
you want to do a good job, and it requires energy
yeah,
and time and
some more puns.
I'm just stop.
Yeah.
So did I hear you say you got a PhD from Georgia Tech?
I didn't finish my PhD. I was working on one. I was doing that full time. I had a full scholarship, and then I was working full time. And the job I had at that time required around 60 hours a week. And I was working on algae growth, on-site algae growth for energy production for homes. And the technology is so far into the future, I realized looking around me again that I could have a more direct impact in my day job, and I didn't feel like I was even though I was working long hours, I wasn't being as impactful as I could be if I were to, slow down and really focus. And so I slowed down and focused, and then also started to help the farmers market really get a lot more traction in our community. We had a good program with SNAP stamps, but a lot of people weren't aware of it or taking advantage of it. So I did some outreach efforts to help grow that participation.
Okay, I was just curious because I thought I heard you say PhD, but your resume says master's.
So after I earned my master's, I was invited to stay for PhD, and so I did start that, but I got partway through and decided not to complete it.
Yeah.
Are you considering maybe we should reconsider this?
We wanted to know more about the algae energy production.
I'm also curious, you say that there are a lot of resources that aren't being used. What are you seeing, for instance?
So I feel that Efficiency Vermont has quite a few offerings for the community. We could be hosting more workshops than we are now with some expert speakers who are nationally sought after to help build a level of awareness and desire within our community. I thought this last series that we did was pretty successful, and if we were to do that on an ongoing basis, we could build a culture of energy efficiency and healthy homes within our community and really support each other that way. My understanding and working with Chuck on some of the affordable housing issues around energy efficiency, it sounded like there aren't as many people in our community who are aware of the free weatherization assistance services or who are hesitant to sign up because there is a waiting list. And Champlain Valley does have a long waiting list, but if you get on it, you will be served. And so I think it's really important for us to make sure people are aware of it. The Efficiency Vermont has a targeted high use program where any individuals who are low income using more than 10,000 kilowatt hours a year can receive free electrical efficiency upgrades. And so I think some of those resources we could be using. I don't know about our school buildings. I've only been in the elementary center one time, and I had my son with me, and as much as I like to count light bulbs, I try to turn it off at certain times. And so I don't know how well our school buildings have started to take advantage of the resources that Efficiency Vermont offers, or go and apply for grants or other philanthropic resources outside of state funding. But it would seem that there's opportunities out there that we could take advantage of.
Thank you. Sounds exciting.
Well, I don't want to overpromise. I mean, it's I'm one
Well, we're
person,
making
so
notes
it's
here,
about.
so we're
Well, I saw that our biggest goal is working on our municipal buildings, and so I didn't know what work had been done. Have we done any benchmarking? I mean, sometimes just benchmarking is the first step, and asking people who are in the facilities questions. So I was in the library the other day, and I noticed the door was open and the air conditioning was on, so that led me to say, okay, the occupants would like to have outdoor air right now. Do they have control over the thermostat? And again, I had my son with me, and I didn't want to put pressure on any of the staff or anything, but it made me wonder, do they have control? Do they have operable windows? If not, is there a way to get them control so that they can have fresh air?
That's a
when they
point
want
that
it?
you mentioned on your application too. You know, you had talked about that in the brief space.
Oh,
there.
well, you guys
Yeah.
asked me to talk
Correct,
about
yeah.
and that was the primary
Yep.
goal that you guys had, so I'd be happy to help. I mean, it usually takes a solid 60 hours to do a level 2 audit that's of any use, so I don't think I could do a lot of them, but Efficiency Vermont can. And so if we haven't found out what they're willing to do for us, we certainly should. And
I think that's been,
Efficiency
Renee
Vermont
can
came
speak
out
to that.
here and did town hall.
Did town
Yeah,
hall.
and I think they went over to the police station after.
so we have energy report.
Yeah, a report to
Okay.
just what their recommendations were, and then we followed up and have purchased some of those. things
Okay.
like light bulbs, replace light bulbs and different things, and there's a couple outdoor fixtures and some other recommendations.
So we could see what those are. If we're not using Energy Star Portfolio Manager, that's a pretty easy tool that we could put our energy and our water into and start to measure our own performance. And I think a lot of it is educating the staff. You know, a lot of times there's just not good communication or not good control. And so I don't want to propose changes because I don't know enough about what's come before me.
So you mentioned
but-
the schools, right? So as I mentioned the schools, I want to bring Phil into the conversation
Sure.
too. But if you get the 6th and 7th graders excited about this, I only say because I have one, they bring it home. You know,
Oh,
so
I know, yeah.
they're the ones often driving these kinds of conversations. Hey, this is what we're doing in school, and you know, Mom, we should do this. You know, Dad, we should do this.
Efficiency Vermont has the Vermont Energy Efficiency Education Program, which is currently undergoing a revamp. And I don't know the details of that program. The reason they pull me in is, again, on the health side related to
Sure.
the, so if we haven't had our school tested for radon, that would be without question a first step. And I would be big on that because my son will be going there soon enough. And that's a free service provided by the state, or to have proper lead paint testing in the elementary school. So those are the kinds of things I could help to move forward or to bring attention to.
Put on our radar.
Yeah.
Phil, are you with us on the conversation so far?
Oh, yes, I
Yep.
am.
And-
I'll just thank Laura for stepping up. And I like to say one of the most rewarding duties as a select board member is to, when we have volunteers, to, appoint them to whatever committees. And I'm always blown away at the level of knowledge and experience that people come and the good reasons they have to want to help their town. So I certainly thank Laura for stepping forward. And I like to hear her talking about some of the sort of grassroots work that the Energy Committee could do. I think the recent training that they had, those 4 sessions on energy efficiency, was, really good partnership between VEIC and our Energy Committee and other energy committees. And personally, I'd love to see like a master baseline of the town's energy use, be it fuel, diesel fuel, electricity consumption by all the different departments, so that as we, institute changes, we can measure them. We can know what to go after. I mean, there's just a lot that could be done. So the more active this committee is and the more we can support them, it's going to be, it provides that quality of life that we're all looking for. So thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. So in conversation with Renee, looking at the term, we were thinking, and I'm asking you, January 1st of 2021, which is a 3-year
I'll be
term.
here.
Yep. So before we appoint you, this is what
That's
we're
fine,
thinking
sure.
about.
Yeah.
And I asked the other board members the same thing. I'm thinking 1/1/21.
Sure.
Yep. And I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Laura Capps to the Energy Committee for the term ending 1/1/21.
1/1/21. Yep. I'll second that.
I'll second that.
There you go. You got a third. Any other discussion?
Just thank you, Laura.
Yes, I'd say thank you.
Thank you. No,
Really,
sure.
really excited about what you're bringing and the ideas you have. I think that's very valuable.
Thanks. We'll talk about them this summer and see what we can get going.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Thank you. There's 4-0.
All right.
Thanks so much. Yes.
I'd also like to, I guess, just at this point, thank Paul LaShure for his service on
Good
the
point.
Energy
Thank
Committee.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So.
He's been really great, and hopefully he'll get back involved when
Yeah.
business.
That is
Hopefully it
something.
doesn't slow down, but when
Right.
things balance out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. I should have said that
Yeah,
right at the
that's fine.
beginning, but thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Paul, for everything, if you're watching, that you've done.
Yeah, right.
That's a yes time.
For the record.
For the record.
Yes, make sure Paul is thanking the notes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Take care.
Okay.
Item number 7, if we're still all in this. Discussion of wastewater allocations. And look who just walked in the door. Perfect timing, thank you. Yeah, no, we all want to get out and still see the sunshine. Is it today the longest day of the year?
It is.
Right?
It is supposed to be the
And we're going to spend it making sure that we have every bit of that in meetings late at night. So as we indicated at the beginning of this conversation, at the beginning of this meeting, this conversation is about talking. I know there was a meeting yesterday that brought some numbers to a piece of paper that we can talk about tonight for next year's allocation for July 1st of 2018 through 12 months. But we have two applications that were given to us in our Dropbox, one for Frost Investment Group and the other for Wind NRG Partners, asking for allocation. And I thought it was appropriate to talk about these two applications first because it'll impact the numbers that we're talking about for next year's allocation. Makes sense, right? You with me, Phil?
Yes.
Good. So has everybody seen the two applications that I'm talking about? So,
Yes.
yes. And so as we review them, we're looking at another, there's 2,400 gallons of water for Frost, 2,000 for wastewater, and
Well, it's not an additional.
no, it's
Right.
it's would like to increase two.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's 2,400 minus the 720 they already have.
720 that they already have.
Right.
That's a good point. And for Wind NRG Partners, their request is for 3,103 gallons for water, correct? And 2,855 gallons for wastewater. So 2 and 3 is 5, lower 5. In round numbers, we'll talk specifics, but my thought is that these two applications, we've already had a conversation about an applicant that we approved when we set in March our allocations for this year. And for whatever the reason might be, these two, well, I know Frost, I guess, is a new one, correct? Relatively new. Is that right, Renee? Frost,
Yes,
or
yes.
maybe I should be
Dated on
addressing
that.
this to Eric.
He dated this on May 14th.
Yeah, so this one wasn't around in March. Perhaps the one from Win NRG was, and we just didn't see it. And
Much smaller one.
Much smaller one
was out there with Wind Energy, and
Yep.
they expanded upon it.
yeah,
They amended it.
so much smaller, as in, like instead of 31, it was like
It's
half that. Something?
890, I think
No,
it
it
was.
is much smaller. So
They
they're-
had an application back in May, but we talked about it, but that was when we didn't have the capacity once the June, when,
Last year.
last year
Right,
of
and then
May,
we went
yes.
through our cleaning house with making sure our water leak was
Right.
found
Yeah.
and our infrastructure issues were
Right.
were addressed.
Their original application was basically for all of what we thought was available.
Right.
So it was a partial, just trying to make sure they had a handle on something.
Yep, yep. And so now here's the final number. So I would like to include these two and think about approving these two this evening so we can move to our conversation about what we want to do this year. So I would entertain a motion, I guess individually would probably be the best for both.
The one thing about that was the last meeting, we had said we weren't going to look at applications until July, and that information was forwarded to BlackRock as well, who was going to submit as well.
But here's an application though that we had.
Right.
You know
I
what
just
mean?
wanted to,
Yeah. Right.
put that
So,
to remind you.
as I see it, I see no reason to have the conversation to approve or deny, but one way or the other, get some sort of resolution on both of these applications tonight.
In this fiscal year that's ending June 30th.
In this fiscal year that's ending June 30th, 2018.
Yep.
I guess what Eric is trying to say is that the BlackRock did approach him and had an application ready. Did they?
They were hoping to put one out, yeah.
Okay.
Did
I
they?
s- and I said, you know, it's not a big rush because they're not even going to look at them until July. That was what you guys had put out.
So that's different than what I understood.
Well, are we referring to our meeting of last week or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Okay, so we should look at the minutes.
Well, let's take a moment to do so.
But Eric, can I chime in?
Please
Sure.
do.
it was my understanding, and I haven't been talking with BlackRock as recently as you and Mitch have, that their first phase that they're interested in doing is large enough that they need the water from the new well that they are drilling, not from our existing capacity to make that possible. Otherwise, they'd soak up all of our allocation and perhaps more, wouldn't they?
Right. I hadn't had enough discussion with him to know what he's looking for.
Oh, so you don't even know what the application
size.
would have
I
looked
don't.
like?
I
Okay.
don't.
So they didn't really have an application.
He was just wanting to get in. He was. Yep.
All right.
He heard everyone was moving towards the door, and he wanted to get in the door with them.
Well, we're not talking about all allocation being consumed by these two.
Right. Right.
You know.
So I just wanted to make bring that up.
Yeah.
I guess.
So noted.
Yep.
I just sort of weigh in here, and
Yes.
I think last time we did say we were going to take a look at what we have and really how to allocate the available capacity we have for next year. In this case, we have two local businesses that are already here, already operating, and looking to expand. And it looks like, and Eric can weigh in on this, that the amount they're looking for allocation is not a significant amount of our capacity.
That's true. And in reality, Frost is already using part of it, so that we might as well have them pay for it. So.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
They're using more water than they're allocated right now, at least this last quarter. So,
But I mean, they're paying for it. You're just saying put it on the books.
Right.
But we are now going to get the allocation fee from them, is what he means.
I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're paying for the consumption, but as far as they're using more than their current allocation.
They're doing right by putting this application in, by what they're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's it's one of those things that kind of we kind of just need to do this one.
Both of these are in the categories that I believe that I would support. Where we want to allocate for business. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on these.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not against it. I was just bringing up because I didn't want you guys tripping on yourselves as far as things you'd said, and didn't want you to get in trouble. That's all.
No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric.
No problem.
That's important.
But I know I didn't mention what was gonna happen in July in the minutes, because you guys said that you wanted to get the committee going and
Right,
get all the
right,
allocations
exactly.
done, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
So-
weren't gonna side,
right.
So
I didn't go there, my bad.
No,
Okay.
I think that's
No, I
okay.
think
I
you're
just
fine.
wanted to see whether there was,
Yeah.
it's fine.
But
Yep.
it's kind of implied that because the committee's going to be formed, the committee's going to talk about it and make some suggestions, and that couldn't happen before July anyway.
right.
Well, yeah, it could have happened
I mean, it
last
could have.
year, so.
It was scheduled
Okay,
to.
well, I will then make a motion to allocate 1,680 gallons per day for Frost, which is the difference between 24 and 720.
And,
Is that the right number?
right, and 1280 of wastewater.
Well, I'm doing one at a time.
Okay. Yep.
So what was the number you said? 1,000.
680? Somebody could check my math.
It's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Because their application didn't put the number.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's an additional 1680 to it
Yeah,
for a
Right.
total of 2400.
Currently allocated for 720.
Right.
Yep.
Would like to increase to 24.
Right.
Yep.
And I could make it, I guess, and their wastewater allocation to 2,000. Isn't that what they
Which is
wanted?
2000, which is an additional 1280.
Oh, initial 1280, okay.
Yep.
1280. I'll second that motion. Any discussion on that?
Is there any indication of whether they're employing more people or they're just upping production with their existing? Okay.
That's my understanding, is there are new employees, but they've taken over the entire building and they're upping production.
Okay.
They're canning now too.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that. The natural progression, it sounds like, of an industry that's taking off.
Yeah.
Every town is a town, as long as it has a brewery in
Yeah,
it these
so
days.
Vermont's beginning to look like old Germany.
Yeah.
Every burg has a brewery.
There's not necessarily anything wrong with that,
Nothing wrong with that.
They make a good beer. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. I have the second for you. Any other discussion on that?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
I do have I'd like to clarify that I am making that motion that they are getting this from category 2.
Oh, good point.
It's within the village core, and it's an industrial district. No, it's just village core. Yeah. Right.
That's a detail, but a important one.
Right.
Are you following on that one?
I am following on
You
that
had
one.
the
What
question on
I'm-
your face.
Well, what I'm not clear about is how much wastewater capacity we actually have. Because I know we're getting more water coming into the wastewater than we're putting out to the town, and we don't really know why.
So.
But I don't,
So even with that, we have 57, 56.
Oh, okay.
This
thank you.
this sheet that was from last,
Right.
I think,
Yeah.
was it last meeting packet maybe?
There's
That had,
lots- yeah,
or maybe
Right.
two ago,
updated version in
is
Right.
what we're,
this packet.
Thank you.
is where that number that he just recited,
Yep,
the
thank you.
57, 56. Okay, any other discussion, Phil?
No?
All those in favor of allocating for Frost to the numbers that were stated, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
There's that for you. I'd like to look at the
So
second
since you've got it,
application.
just go ahead and on page 2, sign it and date it.
I've got notes all over it, so,
Okay, yeah, mine's got notes too.
yeah, so
We'll
I
just,
can print off.
we'll
the
just-
print.
we'll print it off.
we'll get one later.
Yeah,
Great.
but it's a good point to get it done in the moment or else it doesn't get done.
Exactly.
So noted. Okay, similar conversation for Wind Energy Partners. The numbers are different though, of course. So total numbers are 3103 for water, 2855 for wastewater. So I don't know if we want to look at it the same way that you broke it out, Andrea, where we're the add number. Do we know for sure that?
Well, that's-
there's
It's a
some-
new.
It's a
It's-
new
it's
number.
brand new.
It's
There's no
brand new
add.
because it's for a different lot.
So those are our
Which,
numbers.
you know, I had always kind of understood that they had gotten some kind of allocation when they did their subdivision, but
Right.
anyway, we'll
Well, they've got,
give them these.
they've got 800 and some odd for what was originally residential up on the hill, but this is different.
Right, no, but that was
Yeah.
a separate subdivision. This was a subdivision that created the NRG lot and the 2 lots that were south of Riggs Road that is now 1 lot. So, anyway, we'll make this motion for 3,103 gallons for industrial and commercial uses
This is category
for
1.
water.
This is category 3.
Three.
Category
This is
3.
Category 3, but I would say that we're doing it based on enterprise. Not necessarily village northeast. I mean, it is in the village northeast, but it's a commercial and industrial use, so it's not residential. And that's based on 165 employees. Is what the application is. So what I guess in terms of well, I started to make a motion,
Yes,
but then we can have discussion.
sure.
Okay.
Did you want to add wastewater to your
And
motion?
I'll add the wastewater of 2,855 gallons per day.
So I'll second the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Please.
So it's my understanding that there may or may not be someone who is buying or leasing this land. So the idea that there's 165 employees, this is and not a lot of water or wastewater usage for actual production. It's really for the number of toilets, the number of people that they have there. So what I'm concerned about is that if, let's say, they are successful in leasing or buying, selling the property, and it's a business that only ends up with 50 employees, meanwhile, they have the allocation for that. I guess that allocation will automatically, once it comes online and is built, we will get it. But if in the interim period between when they find a buyer and they know that it's just going to be 50 employees, but they have this allocation for that much, is there a way that we can change that allocation amount? I mean, would it be to our advantage to know ahead of time that we actually are going to have more because they're only going to have 50, and they're paying an allocation fee and a holding fee?
Once they, go to where they're actually get their certificate of occupancy and they're
Right, but I'm saying before the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah.
Let's say they find somebody, but it's going to take them a couple of years to go through the permitting and the building of a facility, but they know it's really going to be a business that's only going to have 50 people.
So if that was the case, we're talking about 2,000 gallons, round numbers. If it's 3,000 gallons and a third of them are based on the bathroom numbers, we got 2,000 gallons. You're talking about wanting to.
I'm guessing they won't want to give back gallons they have.
Right, but they will as soon as they go
Turn it on,
online. So
right.
they're going to be paying for more than
Right,
what,
right.
So I guess maybe we can just face that when it comes. But
Right.
it seems like they're going to, if they had a customer that was only going to have 50 employees, why are they paying on an allocation of 165?
Right.
So
I guess right
I
now.
would say it would be a sound business, what do you call it? Gamble, I guess.
Right.
You know.
Right. But then on the same venture is I don't want that 106 that allocation going to some other part of their project. It's for that lot.
Right.
Right.
And that would be something that, this board would be able to, judge on if they came back and say, hey, we want to move it over here. It'd be up to you folks to say yes or no.
Eric, is there a way that, to speak to Andrea's concern, that the select board could condition this such that once a state wastewater permit is issued, if that state wastewater permit is for less than what this allocation is for, that the town will get back prior to the 3-year expiration of the allocation? Because they won't actually go for a state wastewater permit until they have a building design and a client and all that, all those details fleshed out, right? Would that be an appropriate trigger to have a clawback provision of the allocation?
Don't we think we have that in ordinance?
That's what I don't know.
Yeah.
It may not be permissible in the ordinance to do that.
Is this something, though, that the committee who's going to report by the end of the year can address as a certain point? Because it's a very...
Yeah, for sure. I just
So we
didn't
have to look at the
know.
pluses
It's
and
a finer
minuses too,
point
because,
that's
we do receive holding fees for all that.
Right. I think that my own perspective, I like Andrew's idea. I think that given how much allocation we have available, we probably don't need to claw back from this particular allocation because it's not a huge amount.
Right.
But going forward, it would be nice to be able to do that if there
Right.
were an appropriate trigger by which you knew. And
And that's a very good point, because if it was a 25,000 gallon allocation, I mean, that's a
Right.
significant number as relative to a 3.
Which gets locked up for 3 years.
Exactly.
And,
Right.
And if they know 6 months from now that it's gonna be half, it'd be nice to get, for the town to be able to claw that back. But this is
Okay.
not that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good point, Marilee. Phil,
I'm good. I think it all makes sense.
are we ready to vote? All those did you have something? No. All those in favor of the motion to allocate the numbers discussed for wind energy, say aye.
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 Thank you. You got that? Yep. So with that now, we'll use those numbers to continue the conversation to annual allocations for pool designation for next year.
So what that means is that those numbers on the chart that, I don't know, did you revise these, 2019 going forward based on us giving these tonight or not?
I did not.
Okay.
I did
So
not.
we need to subtract
Those.
that from the 31,643.
And
Did anybody do that math?
I haven't yet.
No.
So we need to add them to the approved
Yes.
residential enterprise allocations.
Right.
And then subtract from the
Right.
total allocable. Well, what's
Oh,
the
right,
to-
because they have to be in the proper category
So the
before.
total on water was 1680 for Frost new, plus 3103
Correct.
for, so that's 4783 additional water. In all in
47.
enterprise.
What did you say, 47,
4783.
83? So we had 1280 plus 2855.
I got 9,011 total.
Yeah, I got
total
9,011 total
enterprise.
enterprise approved but unconnected allocation.
Right.
Aaron, we can do wastewater once we get through water. So Eric's got water, so now we just need to do the rest of the math here, right? So
Right, so
31,643 minus the 4783.
Yep.
Yep.
I get 26,860. Is that what you guys get?
26,000 what?
860?
Yep.
Okay.
860 plus. That's what I'm getting.
Okay.
Yep.
And then from that, we were then gonna, we had last week talked about taking out 5 for category 1.
Well, that's by ordinance. That's the minimum, unless you have less than. Basically, it's all of it or 5,000 minimum.
Right.
That's why I put that 5 in there as in brackets, just to remind people.
Right.
You can put 5 in there, or you can put more than that.
Well, we had a
That's your
meeting
choice.
yesterday,
Okay. Yeah.
all right?
Well,
and
this is a good time to talk
right,
about that.
yeah. So our meeting yesterday with members, Maggie and Joe from the Planning Commission and Carl Bolin from the Affordable Housing Committee.
And Tom.
And Tom Ayer, so
Yep.
Tom and I from the Select Board, and Alex, agreed that it was important that we revisit this allocation policy, and that we had established this committee a year ago that never got off the ground. And in the interim, what we thought we would do is up the amount that we are going to keep in category 1 to 10,000 or 7,500, did we decide?
I think it was 7,500.
Right. And then in category 2, we would up that to 10,000. So from the 31,643, we're down to 26,860, and we are going to take out another 1,750.
17,000.
17,050, sorry. And then that remaining would be in category 3. And concurrent with doing that would be that this committee was going to meet and come up with other types of criteria that we might want to use based on what is suggested in our town plan of why we are doing it, because in our town plan, there certainly is the goal of recognizing our water and wastewater as assets and resources that should be used to foster the policies that and goals that we have in our town plan. So we're being consistent with
That's the reason they're in there.
that's right, yeah, that we're in there. And that this committee would have recommendation to the select board by the end of the year. And that we would like to have town staff be there to support the committee. And, it would be important for Eric to be there for the technical support, and I think Alex for basically the
Plan
town
sign.
planning and the ordinance and the stuff, and potentially for Joy, or really for Renee to make these decisions, I think.
Yeah.
But that was our feeling, was to have as many town staff people to become familiar with how it all works, so that our institutional memory and
Yeah, no.
so we actually have something written down, Eric, so when we go to write the history in another 50 years,
Exactly.
people,
I saw it. I
Eric
saw
is
it.
trying to write the history, yeah.
Well,
Sure.
I saw the clipping on Renee's desk today
Yeah,
from
yeah.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway,
Yeah. No, that sounds reasonable.
and Tom was good with this, and,
Yeah, he sent me a one-sentence note saying the same
Okay.
thing, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. The idea of including town staff is a really important thing because there's a whole lot of institutional knowledge.
Yep.
And there's nothing worse than a policy board dictating how things should go without including the stakeholders
Yes.
of who actually have to really make it go. So I'm hearing that you're in on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that I thought otherwise, but
Yep.
having
Eric
you
wasn't
here.
able to be at the meeting, but mostly
it was
we
kind of
we
a-
were talking about, it wasn't any kind of technical stuff. It
Correct,
was-
but the fact,
Yeah.
but the point I'm making is this impacts you.
Yep.
This is your world that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the further it swings towards a planning tool, the more I'm going to probably stay in the technical side because that's just not my bailiwick.
The idea, of course, is
You know.
to have this as a visionary tool to use, so we don't have to be reactionary.
Right.
That's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
As I understand this undertaking, I'd imagine the committee feels the same way.
Yeah.
So as Andrea and Tom, as you guys meet, has there been any talk about including the voices of those who we originally appointed?
Yes,
Good.
yes, and we actually added, I think what we added was the affordable housing and economic development, that we
Good.
should reach out to those two committees. Carl was at that meeting.
Yeah.
And, see if they're still interested and understand, and certainly, I think, invite everybody to the first meeting, and we can see who wants to participate. What I said was, I anticipate that there'll be homework for us,
Sure.
and that, because we do have a timeline, and,
We advertised that last year when we were
Right.
putting this out, so
Right.
yes,
So-
that hasn't changed.
yeah.
So back to the numbers for a
Yes.
moment. So you gave us the new, what do we call those? The numbers in parentheses, those are the reserve numbers? Is that what you called them? For the different categories?
They're the pool designations for each category.
Pool designation for each
Right.
category. So we had 75 for category 1, 10,000 for category 2, which leaves us with 9,360?
Correct.
Is that what we're all seeing?
Okay.
And as I'm going through this, Phil, I haven't allowed you to jump in if you wanted to at this point or at any point, but I just wanted to ask you if you had anything.
Thanks, Aaron. You're doing a great job in including me here. No, just...
I kept the phone in front of me so I'd see it.
I think we had a vision of how this committee should work, and it sounds like it's coming together. So thanks to Tom and Andrea and everyone else for, starting this process. And it is a critical process because it really is a vision for our town going forward, as you said. So it all sounds good.
So Aaron, on the numbers, if
Yes.
you're looking at the page, in addition to setting the total gallons per day in each of the three categories, this document allows you to set how much within each of those categories would be residential versus enterprise. I don't know that in the past we've done that distinction, but you could if you wanted to.
I was going that direction because as I look at this chart, I see 2 empty spots, right?
Right.
And so let me ask that question: is in the past, and I look to you as well, did we just kind of allocate as it came to us,
Yeah.
or and is that work, or is it? Do we need to sort of prescribe that, put ourselves into a box of just enterprise, just residential.
I mean,
Go ahead, Eric.
so my guess is you wouldn't want to say, okay, I've got 10,000, so I'm gonna put, 6,000 here and 4,000 there. That's very rigid.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I would think that you'd want to find somewhere beneath that, like a minimum that I want over here and over there. That way you have some flexibility to work with.
Is what comes in the door.
Right. So if you had 10,000, maybe you want a minimum of 2,000 residential and 2,000 enterprise, and whatever comes in, that's what comes in. Just as a, kind of a
Yeah.
example.
I think that originally the thought was that we want balance in our development.
Right.
We don't want to see all commercial development.
Right.
We don't want to have all of the allocations sucked up by residential development.
But you
But I
also
think
want to
that
leave a
the-
little bit of flex.
Yeah,
You know?
but I think that that the committee that Andrea is talking about that wants to have us with a more robust ordinance that helps us achieve our town plan aims is what we need to really better inform the splits that this current allocation pool talks about. So I agree with Eric. I think it's probably better to leave yourself with as much flexibility as possible to, in this next year, respond to
months.
whatever, or 6 months, respond to whatever projects come in the door. I like Eric's suggestion. I'm not sure that the way this current document is crafted, that it allows for that, right? But what Eric is saying makes a lot of sense to me. You shall at least have 2,000 in each category, and the balance shall be at the select board's discretion to allocate to either category, so that nobody can exhaust all of it in one direction or the other.
Right.
But the way the spreadsheet is set up doesn't really facilitate that. It sort of anticipates you're gonna make a decision about all of it today, for each category.
Well, I mean, it's our
Unless
document,
you-
right? We could rewrite it.
Well, unless you don't enter in numbers for those categories, in which case you have all the flexibility.
And that's my first question of the board is it best just to leave those two boxes empty? With this conversation on the record, that's our intent, is to have equal distribution, or at least a minimum of, to use Eric's number, 2,000, and leave it at that, knowing that changes are coming. Or do we want to modify this a little bit and put numbers in there?
I really like the idea of because it's a reality that the wastewater allocation will determine a lot of the flavor of our town. And I don't want to leave ourselves open to some big industry or some big housing development coming in and taking it all. So I would be in favor of having it less flexibility than more flexibility, but I would also be interested in what the Planning Commission, because they've been working so hard on making a vision that fulfills the town plan. I'd be interested in what they might recommend.
So, right now, we've just been talking about this 9,360 for water. So it probably has more implication on the wastewater
We
one
haven't talked about the other side.
than this water. I mean, that 9,000 is pretty small amount by design.
Yeah.
Well, it's significant enough that the allocation you just granted for
Yes.
a new business with 160 employees
Right.
and some process water was only
Yeah.
a third of that.
That's true, yeah.
I think the Economic Development Commission would also have thoughts on this, which hopefully we'll get in the future committee work, because I know they're interested in seeing more job producers come to town, and they wouldn't appreciate seeing one residential neighborhood
Right.
soak up the entire allocation, and then to the exclusion of something like what Frost is doing or what Jan Blumstrom is trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I would like to move very slowly on deciding what the allocation is going to be and get input from the committees that are involved and see what their thoughts are.
But we have, we have to do we're going to be having to make some decisions between now and December.
Right.
But this document needs, well, I mean, it doesn't need
I
to,
mean,
but the ideally, with this document is done by June 30th, because this goes into effect
This
July
goes into
1.
effect, July 1st, this document that we're looking at.
Yeah.
We have to have something in place. And we, you know,
Can I suggest something?
Please.
First of all, this document, even though it has blank spaces, this has, been approved as an ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it says every year we're going to fill in these boxes. And so if we're only really talking about 6 months, I'm not sure we're going to get caught up too much in being wrong, even if we just divvy it 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And let the committee suggest that, perhaps as Eric has said, that we have like minimums under residential and enterprise and, allow some flexibility on how it is actually allocated. So I think those are good things to do. I'm not sure there's much we can do, and I'm not sure we can make that decision on how much to allocate between the categories tonight.
So you're saying leaving the numbers in the first box, as in category 1 as an example, leaving it at 7,500, with residential and enterprise being empty for the purpose of our conversation tonight.
Yeah, either they're left empty or they're just divvied 50-50. And we've got 6 months to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
I will note that the last time you did this on a regular schedule was for the 2016 to 2017 year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at that form, and you left the residential and enterprise blank on categories 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But you did divvy it up in category 3 for some reason.
Oh, and what did we do?
On that year, we had very little capacity. We had a total of like 13,000 gallons per day. And in category 3, you only had a total of 1,632 gallons per day to allocate, and you put 1,100 in residential and 500 in enterprise. So I don't know what percentage that was, but it must have been a 70-30 split or something like that.
That was water.
That was water. I think the idea of leaving those boxes blank is you have a precedent of doing that in the past. So if you want to do that this time, with the understanding that you're working on it, it wouldn't be out of beyond the pale.
I'm comfortable with that, honestly, and I'm comfortable with it because of our commitment to recommit to the committee's work of committing ourselves to a plan that will put us in a better spot. That's where I'm thinking on this.
Actually, looking into it, the category 1, it's almost, you almost don't need to have those subcategories.
Right.
In
They don't
category
make
1.
any sense
They don't.
in number
They don't.
1.
They make no sense in number 1.
Oh, I see.
Well, there could be a special project that would be residential,
It would
but I
be.
agree most of them would likely be enterprise. But,
But-
an assisted living facility
Sure.
that was deemed
it's-
of great need could potentially get that allocation as a special project.
But whatever it is, we're going to approve it regardless of which category
Yeah, you're
it
right.
fits
Yeah.
You're right.
in.
Right. So, I mean, it's really just category 3 that we're talking about.
I see, so that's
Maybe
probably
2,
why it was
but
just
yeah.
Well,
category 3.
a
that
little
was-
bit of 2 as well, because, that includes the village district, which we
Yes.
still have a chunk of that's undeveloped.
Yeah.
Right.
Could be residential or commercial. Or enterprise.
Yeah.
But if
Well-
Mary Lee, if you're concerned about having it be blank, maybe Phil's suggestion of just 50-50 does the trick.
Yeah,
With the knowledge that if we get a great business that wants to come in and 50% isn't enough for them, well, we're gonna be revisiting it soon anyways, just give us a little time and we'll probably end up with more, you know?
Yeah.
That would address your concern.
Yep, I would be much more comfortable with that. Thank you, Alex.
Are you wanting category 3 50-50 or all, or category 2? Or
Let's do
So-
category 2 50-50.
is that what you're thinking, Marilyn?
Sure, yep.
You could do 3 50-50 as well.
Yeah.
I think Eric's right, category 1 doesn't really
It's a
matter.
moot point.
No.
But 2 and 3 could see
Now,
any residential or
now,
enterprise.
would you weight category 2 more enterprise versus 3?
I don't know, to be honest with you, Eric. I think there's a lot of potential for both.
ways.
Okay.
Certainly if enterprise is gonna happen, that's where it's more likely to happen.
Right.
But,
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
In category 2?
or two, in
Right.
category 2, yeah.
But we have a very large light industrial district in the village northeast that is
Right.
in category 3. So
Right.
there could be a lot of enterprise there
There's
as
a lot of-
well. I think there's opportunities on both
All right.
in those two categories.
Okay.
Are you with us on the numbers, Phil?
Yeah, yes, I like the discussion, I like where it's going.
Okay. So, do we want to, I asked the board, we've made some progress here. I think we have solid numbers that we like. Do we want to, before we finalize that, take a look at wastewater?
I don't say it'd be good to finish one, start the other.
Finish one, start the
It'll
other.
actually make
Okay.
wastewater easier by finishing water.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think.
that's kind of where I'm asking if, which,
Yeah.
I want to make it easier. So with that said,
So did we decide 50/50 on category 3?
I believe we did.
I wrote that down.
Yeah.
If that's what everybody's agreeing on.
Okay,
Are you agreeing on it?
yeah.
Yeah, Phil? 50/50 on
Just-
category 2 and 3?
It's a 6-month fix.
That sounds
Yeah.
good?
Yep. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve these numbers as we've discussed. Do you have all of them written down, or do you need me to?
Well,
I think Eric's
He's got 'em, okay.
You
Yeah.
have them all written down.
4680 apiece.
Yep.
And
I was going to say, let's talk about wastewater. And if any other questions come up in wastewater that come
We can go
back to
back.
water, we'll
Okay.
do that,
Now, are
so,
we splitting 2 up or not?
yes.
So $5,000 apiece there?
Yeah.
Yep, 50/50.
Okay,
It's,
And you'll type those up once they approve them?
sure. Yep.
And then we need a signature on these too, once we're all done. Is that
We'll
by
have
the
to
end of
just-
the
We'll have
month?
someone do it, you know,
by
they
the end
do
of the month?
warrants or
Yeah,
whatever.
okay, yep, good, okay. So let's put that conversation on hold for a moment as we look to wastewater, which is on the other side of my sheet. I think the first thing we have to do is do our math.
Subtractions, yep.
Right,
So-
which I think we did part of. What I have is,
80 on Frost.
right, I had 4,135 additional allocation that you just made that needs to be accounted for.
So it's 1280, and what was the other one? I don't have it in front of me.
1280
2855.
and 2855.
55.
So just help me with the math. Is
Yep.
2855 and 1280 equal 4135?
4135.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then we minus that number from the 57,856.
Yep.
Yeah, which I got as 53,721.
53,721.
Okay. Now, did the committee do the same 7,500, 10,000 on wastewater?
Could you read that number again?
So
What did he
the
get for the final?
53,721.
Good.
Yep.
Andrew, I don't think we did.
I don't think we did,
were
but-
focused on water because that was the limiting piece, and we
Right.
didn't get to the wastewater side.
but
Okay.
it seems like we would need to do the
It makes
same
sense. Makes
for the
sense.
Has to
wastewater,
be
at least category 1, category.
least.
Two,
I mean, if you're
yeah.
giving that much water, you need to get rid of that water.
So we're gonna say 7,510?
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to have a large balance of wastewater allocation, it shouldn't all go in category 3.
Well-
I think category 1 could be the same as the water,
The-
category 2 could be larger, and category 3 could then get the balance.
The good thing, we don't have to worry too much about that just because by ordinance, you can't get one without the other.
Yeah, good point.
They're very tied together, you just can't do it. So it's not really a big
But
concern.
what's your thinking, Alex, of why we would want to have more in category 2?
Well, just because the reason category 2 is there is because we want to emphasize and make sure we always have capacity for infill and development
Right.
within our core.
Yes.
So I just think it would look odd to have small amounts in category 1 and 2 and a very large amount in category 3 when category 2 is a very important district or area.
Right.
But Eric's absolutely right. It actually doesn't matter because you can't have one without the other. And
But I think going towards your kind of policy idea, the reason that we stuck to those small numbers in the water was because that's all we had,
Right.
kind of. Now, when we have more water, when this other well comes online, we're really gonna have to change all those numbers, right?
Especially category 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So,
I take it back. Eric's right. I don't think
Okay,
it matters.
okay.
I think you could just mirror the water for
This is-
category 1 and 2 and let the balance be in
Okay.
category 3.
It's
and
good, it's good fodder for the committee.
yeah.
As in
okay.
75 and 10,000?
Yeah,
Is that
okay.
what we're talking about?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So 53, we're then down to,
53, 721
minus,
17,500.
Right.
36, 221,
That's what I got.
36,
221.
okay.
Yep.
And do you want to go 50-50 on the residential enterprise in category 2 and 3 the same way you did with
Might as
water?
well.
Well, is there a reason not to?
I don't think so.
Use the KISS system.
Yeah.
Did you guys know you're doing math tonight when you guys signed up, came in for the meeting?
We'll do 18.
You got your abacus going?
Let's see, on category 3, I'm gonna do 1 gallon more residential than enterprise.
So you have
Just
round
because I'm not
numbers?
splitting gallons.
An odd number.
You're not gonna have a half a
Oh,
gallon?
right.
I'm not gonna have a half gallon. It's just,
You can drink it,
it's
Eric.
just silly.
We're on the wastewater side. He doesn't want to drink it.
I'm not drinking wastewater.
But you said it's so clean.
Are you with us on the numbers, Phil?
Well, I'm not doing the math, but I'm trusting somebody is getting it good.
Yeah,
There's 3 or 4 of us doing the math.
and they're all matching even.
And did you get what the numbers are?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you watching us on television? I mean, on your
I am,
screen?
and actually, I was going to comment later, but you guys look great. Fantastic. Nice job by VCAM.
Well, we had a few extra minutes in wardrobe this morning before we came out on stage.
I can see, yeah. Obviously, makeup. And nobody's back of the head looks better right now than Eric. Let me
Yes.
say that.
At least it's not
Keep camera on
shinier.
here.
Yeah,
You're lucky.
that's, yeah, so it will be eventually.
Yeah.
It will be. It's going that way.
Okay.
All right, so we have, to recap, total of 53,721, broken out into category 1 of 7,500, category 2, 10,000, category 3 of 36,221, with category 2 and 3 of 50/50, plus 1 gallon on category 3 to what, you want to go to
I
enterprise?
just did residential.
That's a
That's
residential.
where the pin landed.
Yep, plus 1 gallon. Are we good,
Yep.
Andrea?
Yeah.
Phil?
Yep.
Good. So do we want to entertain a motion, maybe that the motion combines both of these?
Yes, I'll make that motion that they set the allocation for fiscal year beginning
19.
July
FY 19.
18, going to June 30th, 2019.
Yep.
That's recorded in our minutes here. Calculations.
Yep, I'll second that. Any discussion? Are we ready for the vote?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes?
yes.
Yep. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And that's a 4-0.
Yep. And I would ask that, Val, that you, I think you probably did, but you also record in the minutes that we said we're going to have this committee and that we're going to be due by December.
Yeah, end of the year.
So it's in writing.
Yeah, exactly.
The difference is this time we mean it.
This time we mean it.
Eric's gonna type up both of those forms, and then
Yep.
you wanna put it on the website, Aaron,
Please,
once he
yep,
gets that?
absolutely.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Type up and we'll get Phil to swing in at some point and sign them both.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Phil, when you get back into town?
Yes.
Yep.
No problem.
Very good. So I believe, unless anybody says otherwise. Item 7, discussion of water wastewater allocations is complete.
A couple more things.
Couple more things.
Sort of related to that. I guess in the past, Rocky would send out letters to all of the people that had holding fees.
Oh, yes, thank you.
And so I was just talking to Eric about that today. He wasn't completely familiar with that process, so we're gonna talk, we're gonna meet with Eric, Cheryl, and I, and Joy, and just so that we're all straight on the process, so that he can continue that moving forward, or if there's any adjustments that need to be made, will be made. So that probably at the next meeting, we'll be asking you to carry those forward once he's had contact with all of those.
Oh, we
People.
want to know who's wanting to
To make
be
sure
here.
that they all want to be
And
here.
then we'll have to do these numbers all over again.
There you go.
There's an assumption that they do, but
Yes,
in
yes.
the event something changes.
So I have an idea. Are we talking about a dozen, 2 dozen?
They're-
Less
Round
than
number.
that many.
Less than a dozen.
Like, probably 8 total.
5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Okay.
And will you also be checking to see which ones expired?
Yes,
Right.
yes,
what
that's
we're-
the process
We're
that we're
gonna
talking about.
bring them up to not expired, yeah.
Oh, okay, because
Well,
in the past,
Or they-
we've said the allocations are good for 3 years, and then they expire, and during each of those 3 years, you're paying a holding fee.
Right.
Right.
But once they expire, so that's the group that you want to bring back to the board, to people who are gonna ask for the allocation to
Renewals.
be renewed for
Right.
another period of time, whether
Right.
that's another year or 2 years.
Right.
So my only comment as a planner is, we ought to eventually say no.
Right.
Because in the past, we let people
Yes.
hold on to
Right.
allocations way longer than they should have
Right.
for projects that never came to
Well, like,
fruition.
for
Is that
instance-
spelled out
for
in the
instance, like,
ordinance
you know,
this time?
Norris
I
is.
hope so.
Norris
Yeah,
is
I wonder.
expiring, right, currently. He's
His
laying pipe.
project is under construction,
you know.
yeah, so that's a clear no-brainer
easy. Yeah.
to extend,
Yeah,
yeah.
Is it spelled, do you remember, is it spelled out in the ordinance?
I'd have to look,
Okay.
if it's not, I blame it on Phil, he helped
The
write the
ones-
latest version.
So that's something we want to look at too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that.
So we'll
and
expect that next meeting, it sounds like?
At the next meeting, I think,
Yep.
as long as
Yep.
you can make contact with those people
Yeah.
and have that by the July
it'd
5th.
be either that or the following one, just because however long it takes to get
Yeah,
people.
you have to, it relies upon other people returning your
Right.
message, yeah. Okay.
And then
Thank you.
also in your Dropbox,
Yeah.
there is a newsletter that Eric had put together.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to
I
kind
thought
of
it
give you.
was, it's like the government sort of USDA thing or something. I don't know, something. And then I
No,
looked
that's
like,
fine.
no, this is Eric built this.
So he's just looking for feedback because he wants to put this out in the quarterly
In the billing.
billing.
Yeah.
I think it's great, and it's similar, only maybe even prettier than the one I used to get in California with my water bill. Every time the water bill came out, there was something like this.
Yeah, I think it's a huge start in that there's
Yeah.
so much that we could actually put into this.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. It's very informative, and it's really nice to have that information.
And just in time for handing out of the 4th of July.
Yeah, could do that.
Just as a side note, is the water wastewater building going to be open at all during Old Home Week?
No, it's basically that whole area. We're even gonna have to get our trucks out of the way for fire department
No, I'm
stuff.
saying like, I'm saying
the
oh,
water
there.
treatment.
So remember we had the open house down there?
No, we didn't plan for that. No.
Not that you necessarily should. I just sort of had that thought off the top of my head, and we have things to tout and talk about.
You know, over the course of the June 30th through July
Yeah.
4th.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, during the week we
there
could
during the week.
definitely if we could
Monday or
maybe
Tuesday.
plan an after lunch tour or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Great idea.
Yeah.
You know, and be able to talk about some of the things we talked about at our last meeting when we brought up the fact that we're raising the rates, but hey, look, this
Yeah.
is part of, you know, and tell our story
Right.
about how good this is.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a thought.
Yeah. And
Randomly.
actually,
So,
It-
so just a comment. One is thanks, Eric, for putting that newsletter or info, whatever you call it, the drip, the big drip or something.
The flow.
I don't know.
The flow.
I thought
we have flow.
it's really good, and it's a really opportunity to communicate a lot of things. My suggestion, and it's only a suggestion for the next one, would be here are the folks who work in your water and wastewater,
Yep.
like an introduction to the folks there.
Yep.
And then, we did have a discussion about infiltration, and it might be good to have something that says, hey, by the way, if you're pumping water into the wastewater,
Absolutely.
Here's what the penalties are, and
Yep, that was actually,
whatever. But so I think it's a great opportunity to get a lot of good information out there.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
yeah, the inflow issue was already, was going to be one of my key topics on the December edition.
To Phil's point, though, are your names there anywhere?
Yeah.
Just my contact for questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
might wanna add-
idea of like
Add the other.
highlighting an operator in different episodes would be good.
But even just putting their
Yeah.
name
Just
on
put their
this.
names,
Their
put
picture.
everybody's name.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think what Phil's just saying is a picture to at some point, so people
Right.
can see who
Yep.
these
But with
staff
this
are
this
too.
episode or this one, if you can put everybody's name on
Their
it.
name.
Just have to yeah.
I don't know.
Fitting everything is the hard part on this
Right,
one, to get it in one page. And the
Not gonna
the
feel like
people
we're
who
complicated.
fold these really want it to be kept one
Yeah, that's
page.
fine, that's fine.
And you want the font to be as big as possible.
And a suggestion on the open house, which I think is not a bad idea, but maybe next fall you approach the elementary school and just sort of say, hey, if any of your classes want to come through,
Absolutely.
see what water and wastewater is all about.
Yep.
You might get a certain grade who might be studying those kinds of things,
Yep.
and that'd be a fun thing for them to do.
Yep. The especially the water plant. I've done
Yeah.
wastewater tours, and it's actually rather humorous. Some of them don't find it so humorous, but I do.
Okay, good. Those are a couple things you had. Anything else?
That's it.
Anything else to add to this discussion? Item number 7.
I guess the only other thing is the history thing that Andre
Yeah.
was talking about is because I just got word that the New England Waterworks Association's journal, which is their publication for the regional waterworks, is doing an article highlighting our water department.
No, no kidding.
And that's why I was looking for the history. That's some of
Yeah.
the questions they have.
When is that?
Well, do you know Stan? Bissonette?
I haven't talked to him.
Talk to Stan. I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably he was not the first operator.
No.
But he's the second.
Yeah.
So he'll know.
Okay.
And Rob Vast will have a lot of
Well,
information.
Rob, I mean, Rob won't have the origins,
No, he won't
which
have
is in the
that, but-
60s.
But from the perspective of the seat we sit in, of
Right.
Right.
putting,
Right.
I mean, it's a different
Yeah,
perspective.
right. But I mean,
Right.
in terms of the real, I mean, because I don't know if any of that other stuff is written down
Right.
of like when it was. But I did hear that all the original water meters came from Essex because they were upgrading theirs. So we
That sounds about right.
So
That sounds about right.
yeah.
And then this is also an opportunity perhaps for collaboration with the Historical Society. Because
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is the kind of stuff they love.
Yep.
Including, and they already have a publication about Hinesburg that they self-published or updated and self-published that I don't know if there's a spot for this in, as an addition to, or, just so it's, again, further preserved and your efforts aren't forgotten about a year from
Right.
now.
The for the purpose of the article, though, it's they're on a very short timeline, so I'm probably just gonna
Yeah.
Whip it
they're
out.
interviewing tomorrow, so
Oh,
it's I'm probably gonna be a little short on some of the information,
But I mean, I think one really interesting fact was that, I mean, the water system served at least a half a dozen farms that were in the village.
Right.
So it was the cheese factory and dairy farms with 50 to 175 cows at the time. So
Very different users. than we
very
have
different
now.
users. But that's, that was originally the
Right.
reason I would think for the water system anyway was for the dairies.
right? Yeah.
It was not, and the school, I
Right.
guess. But it was, I mean, that's what's really interesting to think how much water we were using because cows drink a lot of water.
Oh yeah. No, I'm actually aware of some of the history just because I was I worked with and we traded some efforts and a lot of different equipment back in the mid-90s when I was assistant chief over in Richmond. And I was always with Steve.
Oh, with Steve. Oh, I was going to say also with Bob Wood, who was the
Bob
waste
Wood
operator
at the cheese plant. Oh, yeah, Bob
and
Wood as well.
he was a backup person for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I knew Bob well and Steve. Yeah, I worked with both of them. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is this a good time to ask you briefly? Saturday there was a big hole dug out in front of town hall, and it looks like it's successful because I'm not seeing water leaking.
I could bring it in. I totally forgot. I have a
little bolt upstairs.
I've got the rest of it.
I figure there's a new Kennedy valve was taken out.
I have a piece of our infrastructure out in the truck that I could go get if you're interested. Just because people are asking, hey, why are we having these breaks? Well,
why don't you take a picture of it and post it on Facebook or something?
Yeah.
This is it was a saddle on the 8-inch main that, I mean, just the amount of rust was phenomenal. It was where it's conglomerated, it's 3 times the size of the normal saddle, but then there's other parts that were just non-existent. The weight, I can't imagine. I'm amazed that it lasted as long as it did, because basically the weight of the soil over it is all that was holding it together.
That was like down by my house here on the corner.
And when we
story.
got down within a couple of feet of it, all of a sudden the leak got a lot faster.
You were removing the pipe.
Well, it was coming out full hole,
Yep.
Yeah.
a 3/4 inch.
Yeah, please, yes, take a picture tomorrow or something. And
But
send it off to Joy.
That's why.
We'll all be conversant on what these terms are, saddles and.
Yeah. But that one went really well.
Yeah, it was quick.
It was quick.
Relatively speaking.
And
it didn't affect a lot of the system, correct?
No, it didn't really. The water was the pressure was reduced for such a short period that I don't think it had any real negative effect on anybody.
I lost water at my house for a few minutes. Yeah, it wasn't very long, but
minutes.
Yeah.
And the bigger win was I decided to do the last half of the excavation with hydro excavation, which is basically vacuuming.
Yeah, I saw the big truck,
and
vacuum truck there.
By doing that, we saved. We didn't end up needing to go into the state highway shoulder, which is expensive to replace. Nor did we need to rip out 2 panels of sidewalk, which had we not used hydro, we would have had to.
You kept it contained.
Because we had 2 conduits 2 feet above the main line that were in our way. We had to gun with the excavator. We had to go on the sides of it, and we were just stuck around it.
Was this an aha moment to do it that way, or
I've done it before in previous position, because I own my own back truck.
Yeah.
Back in Winooski.
Yeah.
And it's like back truck would do a good job here, and they cost this much money, but they saved that much money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, long term, you're not replacing.
Yeah, I mean, just either the sidewalk or the shoulder repair would have cost more than the car in the back truck.
And are we all up to date with all of our sidewalk and shoulder repairs of all of our previous breaks?
All but the current one, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, and that one, I'm hoping they're here tomorrow because he promised it'd be this week. Yeah.
Okay.
So if he has an excuse for tomorrow, he will be in Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
Cool.
And we're communicating, I assume, with the neighbor here.
Oh yeah.
So they
they're
know.
doing great. They've been very cooperative, and they know what's going on.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks.
Yep.
Anything else on the topic?
Right.
Thanks, Eric. Let's move to item number 8. Considering approving outside consumption permit request for Bristol Bakery. So in our packet, we saw, and if you've been down to Bristol Bakery, you can see what they're doing. They've created a platform.
Outside patio.
Outside patio. which they describe in the application that they'll have sort of roped off, and hours of operation for it. It looks fairly straightforward to me. My question maybe for you is, do we need to convene as liquor control
Yes.
for this?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to convene as the Board of Liquor Control.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, so let me pull up that in front of me. And it was item number
8A.
8A. My understanding is they already have one.
Yeah,
Correct.
people were out
They-
there tonight when I drove by.
Yep, yep.
Oh, they already have a liquor license.
Yeah,
They
that's what
have
I'm
a
saying.
liquor license. Typically, they would have done both of these at the same time.
At the same
They
time.
forgot to
Yeah.
submit this one at the same time.
Which is how I
so-
was looking at this, is
Yeah.
I thought that this would probably have already gone with the other, and so this is just a catch-up paperwork.
This is just a catch up for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fairly straightforward, no comments in particular outside of, yeah.
So they're just.
I'll make a
waiting.
motion to approve the application for outside consumption for Bristol Bakery and Cafe, the Hinesburg location.
Second it?
Any conversation? You okay, Phil?
Yep.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
And is that the only thing we needed to do inside the
That's
liquor
the only
control
one
ban?
because this is an ongoing outside consumption permit. The public house also submitted one, but it's just for a one-time thing, and
So we don't need to be-
last year, we guys made a motion to let Missy or I sign those, and so
Yep.
she's already submitted it. That's all this
So
one.
we'll want to adjourn as the liquor control board.
Yep.
Board of Liquor Control. Make a motion to adjourn.
Yep,
Second it?
yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 There it is. We're back, Val.
Yep.
So is there another one that I didn't see for the one time? Did we?
No.
No, you guys
You were
don't
just
need,
using
you
it as
guys
an
don't, I
example.
was just letting you know there
As
was
an
another one.
example.
You guys
Yeah,
don't need to
Yeah, that's
review the one times
I was gonna say, I
anymore.
didn't think I see it.
But what's happening with foam
As
and
far
their
as,
one-time deals?
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, they kept doing.
Missy must have signed those, and I
Okay.
haven't seen those.
Oh, okay, all right.
Did they had some,
I don't know if they did, but I mean, we had discussed the fact that they couldn't just keep asking for one-time events. That we wanted, I mean, if they're gonna be doing these on a weekly basis.
foam or frost, you mean?
Oh, frost.
I was gonna say, okay, I haven't seen something for foam.
Frost.
Frost is going through, let's see. what is-
DRB?
Yes, I think they're
Yes,
going through
because
the
Mitch
DRB.
came and asked Eric a question of whether they needed to get a more allocation because they're gonna have food trucks.
Food trucks,
And
yes.
so,
yeah.
because they have to serve food when they're doing that, so does
Yeah.
that constitute them being a restaurant?
Right.
And so
So they're
what is
going,
that-
yeah, they're going through the DRB on that. I
Yeah.
haven't seen anything else come in
Right.
on the one time.
So that was a question that was Eric gonna answer that, or was that gonna be an allocation that needed to come to us? So you could follow up with Eric, I think, on that.
Right.
allocation did come
You had the allocation with frost.
With frost.
Frost.
Yes.
Frost.
Oh, it was frost.
Yes, you had it with frost. I was confused. I was trying to figure out if there was something else. If there was something else you were referring to. You had the frost one tonight.
Oh, okay.
Their
Yeah.
allocation
Oh,
because
all
of
right.
that.
Right.
Okay.
Somehow I kept thinking about.
Well, where you started with this,
I thought you meant liquor,
I thought you
liquor
really
thing.
were talking
I was
about
trying to figure out
foam
which-
and wondering if they're producing there. I thought that's where you were starting with this.
Yes, and I guess that
And foam-
the
or
whole time we were talking about
Saputo.
frost, I was picturing foam.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
that's my problem.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just trying to
So
figure out.
to
if there was
that
something-
question though, do we know, are they producing beer at foam at the Saputo plant?
As far as selling it?
No,
right here?
not selling it,
I thought
just,
they were just canning.
yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what they're doing.
I thought they were just canning, that's what, I thought we learned at the tour a couple months ago.
Yeah, because you went with Peter Welch, right?
Yeah. I thought just canning, not actually
I can find
producing.
Okay.
Yeah, no big deal. That's where I thought you were going with it.
Yeah. Okay.
You good, Phil?
But I think that I'll just look at the frost application more closely then in terms of.
Conversation and confusion between foam and frost. Are they giving you guys free samples?
Hey, it's your fault you missed this night.
When mom's away, the cats will play, right? Yeah, so, okay, let's move to item number 9, shall we? Town administrator report.
All right.
I think I covered one for you.
You covered one. I was the water repair, so.
I thought I'd just jump
Yep.
in since he was here.
There you go. Highway garage update. We don't have more pictures for this week, but it's progressing along and still seems to be on target. I don't have my notes of the things that were happening this week, but to remember, Andrea, as far as specifically.
Stuff happened, more stuff is going, open houses.
There's some details.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's going really well. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to
Yeah.
go out there again, but you should see
Yeah.
it.
Are we looking at a late summer, early fall kind of open house?
Probably late summer, like end July, August, somewhere in there.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, it's even
Somewhere.
sooner than I thought. I thought it'd be like August, September,
Yeah.
October, something, but,
Yeah.
okay, good.
And let's see, I'm trying to think what else we have going on. The Village North Sidewalk, just waiting for those bid documents to go out. So I was gonna follow up with Doug Hinson today, and I never got a chance. We had so many things going on. We are working with the state on construction inspection person, to do that. So they have already done the pre-qualification process. We're doing it at the ready process, and so now we're just identifying of the 3 of the firms that they selected. We need to choose one of those, and so we've gotten feedback from a variety of different people, and so then once we choose that, then we would submit an RFP to them, so that they're ready to go once the contractor is identified. So that's still on target for an August construction.
We didn't make a decision on the engineering RFPs.
No, we haven't completed that
Because we were waiting
yet.
for Eric to get a little more feedback, right?
Yeah, but we've been working a little bit off the other
Okay.
towns too,
Yeah.
trying to get some information, so.
Right.
So that's been a process.
But it sounds like it's on track process you're describing. I mean, it's a process, it's not a negative connotation, but rather it's just,
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
taking
it's
time.
something that, it's taking
Yeah.
time, but I think
Yeah.
we need to, come up with something pretty soon. So
And I
that we
think
can-
it probably will be something that, well, hopefully there'll be kind of a proposal that'll come back to the board, right? I mean, in terms of the issues that Alex raised in his memo, and then what we talked about.
Yeah, and I think
Because we only got 2.
right.
I think ultimately we'll want to do some interviews of
Yeah.
those and everything too, so there may be a committee that we'd want to have to do that process.
Did we just put it out there, or did we, well, I know it's sort of backwards, but like, did we say, hey, this is out there, and we sent it to people?
It was advertised, it was on,
Well, I
It
know
was
we advertised
a
but-
request for
But
qualifications.
did we proactively engage people to apply?
it was put out in all the process, I mean, so Works in Progress picks it up, and that's how all of the different firms.
No, I understand that we put it out there.
We didn't reach out to
Okay, that's
firms
all I wanted to know.
specifically, no.
Yeah, okay,
No.
that's fine. Not that you necessarily would have, I was just kind of wondering if
Right,
that happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
no. And I think that's
Road crews mowing.
road crews mowing.
And patching the road too. I noticed, maybe almost a month ago now, that all the spots that were getting potholed starting, that first layer coming up,
Yeah,
have all been patched.
Yeah.
Commerce Street in particular, Shelburne
Yeah.
Falls Road by Fox Run there.
uh-huh,
Couple of
Yeah.
really bumpy spots
checking
are
off the
smoothed out.
some other work, yep. They've been doing a lot of the Texas Hill Bridge work,
Oh, yeah,
we didn't hear
wanted to
back,
ask you
so
about
I'm not
that.
sure if they completed that. We were just trying to find out if they'd completed it this week. I think at the expectation they were going to finish by today, but I haven't been up there to see if
Mm-hmm.
they did or if that goes into next week a little bit,
I'll
but,
check it tomorrow,
yeah,
so we can respond to.
that's right, today's only
traffic alert.
Thursday, it's not Friday yet.
Yeah,
That's right.
not
That's
really,
right.
almost.
So, and I know they've been doing work up on Lincoln Hill. And so I think that Mike had asked if I could ask you guys to take a drive up there.
I did
see-
go up, and what he had done They're putting in much larger riprap than what had been done before. And it looked good to me. My one thing was I was wondering whether they really needed to go up the hill more, but he's following the state specs and
Yeah, I'll go up there.
seeding everything on the other side and
Yeah.
trying to work with landowners.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I have some questions to ask Mike, like what's happening below where he's doing it, because that's where there's a lot of erosion.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
anyway.
I think he was getting some negative feedback from some landowners there, and so I think he just wanted support from the select board. And
Yeah.
I'd like you to drive up there just to support the work he's doing, or see if you guys feel like he needs to be doing something different. He wants to know from you.
All right. Got that, Phil?
Yep.
Brad Lincoln help.
I think that's it.
Excellent.
There we go.
You good, Joy?
I'm good.
Yeah. Select Board Forum, number 10. Anything in particular for?
Yes, I would like to say that since the longest day has ended and we're starting the shortest night, I'd like to celebrate by sharing these chocolate-covered almonds.
Oh. I'd love to accommodate. Phil, I'll eat yours for you.
can still see some light up. It's quite nice. If you look out, you can still. Oh, yes, it's beautiful. Again. Still a little light up there. But I think the sun has set.
Yeah. I would like to say to everybody listening, of course, but to us in particular, to if you haven't already, now's the time to really start letting folks know about the 4th of July celebrations that we're having that are coming up. And it's starting to kind of percolate out into the community in all the different ways, both electronically and in the record and word of mouth.
And the sign.
And the sign, you know, and I saw the sign down at the firehouse on
And
the.
Brian
And Brian
And
said
Brian is a
something
lamb,
on-
and so,
yeah.
Oh,
so
good.
people are starting
Rice
to
and
pick,
berry.
yeah,
Berry, yes.
people are starting to
Berry,
pick up
berry.
on this. At the same time, people are starting to say, hey, what's going on with the 4th of July? So, promote, you know, is just, it's gonna be a big day, big week, you know, all around. Anything for you, Phil?
No, but I'll just say it one more time, because usually Al Barber's listening in. And he said we would be wowed at the parade, so I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we have
See the
great
response.
weather. It'll be a great event.
I know some of the younger folks from the community too are also really looking forward to this. Anything else?
None from me. Nothing from me.
You good? Did we hear anything from Tom?
As far as,
Select Board Forum? I didn't.
he didn't mention anything.
You didn't say how much the golf tournament raised? Didn't they have the golf
Yeah,
tournament for the fireworks?
yeah, because the HBPA had their firecracker scramble, I think they called
Here's
it.
Al. He said, yep, thank you.
There you go, Phil. Hearing none, let's move on to number 11, review minutes from June 7th. I'll start with a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 7th with corrections.
I'll second.
I'll second.
There you go, you got
I'll
3.
second.
All right,
First correction is.
Yeah, but
Yes.
Val said she already changed it.
Okay.
My last name is Lovell,
yes.
not Kimball.
It's spelled differently. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I mean, I read through these. I didn't really even see that. Although, if I did,
You just thought I was your sister.
or something. I don't know, something. You know, it's you almost don't. You kind of go right to the meat.
Yeah.
You know, right? Not. But good catch. Val, you're just keeping us on our toes.
That was a test.
Yep. Yeah, I don't believe I had anything as I went through it.
Yeah, I didn't see anything else.
I looked at it. I didn't have anything. It looks good.
All right. So if we're ready for the vote, all those in favor of approving minutes from 6/7/18, say aye.
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 Number 12, consider approving warrants. I'll make a motion to consider approving the warrants right here for this week,
Second.
including payroll. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 And so Andrea or Marilee, maybe one of you could look them over and sign them.
We got you.
Okay.
Okay. Aye.
There it is. You get 4. And then our last item is to consider a motion to enter executive session under stated provisions in the agenda having to do with personnel and contract. And if anything does come out of this, Joy or Renee will send it along to you to report in a minute. But at this point, unless there's any other business that we need to take care of this evening, we'll end the broadcast and then adjourn the meeting after executive session. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make that. And to include Joy and Renee.
And probably Phil on the phone.
And Phil on the phone?
I'm assuming.
Actually, I was going to step away, and but I thought I would talk to you, Aaron, prior to that, just to give you my thoughts on the items in the executive session.
Okay. That's fine.
So I should note Phil's not going to be present.
Phil won't be present, yeah, so it'll just be the 3 select board members. So that is the motion to go into, and then we have to do this in 2. I don't have my cheat sheets with me.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll make it under provisions of 1 VSA 313A, 1A, 2, and A. And then we'll do the next one
Which is
to discuss for the purpose of discussing
Yep,
personnel and contract.
yep. To include the people stated,
Yeah.
the 3 select board members, the 2 town administrators' office, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's your motion for both. Is there a second for both?
Second.
All those in favor of both motions? Aye?
Aye.
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 And with that, we head to executive session. Thank you, everyone.